Hello everyone, Krydax here, and welcome back to Kerbal Space Program RP-1. In our last episode, we actually finished this program in terms of our launches. Now, I realize it doesn't look finished, but that's just because it's going to take, like 20, 30 days or something for this to finish, and then we will be able to complete the program whenever we want. Now, I was kind of looking through these, and as far as I can tell, there's not anything that needs the early Earth observational satellites. Meaning, if I were to, that's crude orbit. These require interplanet probes. Interplanet probes requires early lunar probes. So really, I don't think we're going to complete this program until the very end, because there's no need to. Unless I wanted to move on to like X-Planes research or something. And I've gotten multiple comments about this. Some of you would love to see me work on X-Planes. I'm not sure if we will in this playthrough. I'm really enjoying rockets, and that's enough to handle. So I may or may not, we'll see. But yeah, obviously working towards crude orbit is something we want to do as well. And we can do that soon. We do need to start training astronauts. So, but this is only one slot. So when this is done, we'll only have 2 excess slots. And so I won't even be able to take the crude orbit. What's this one? Satellite coverage. Huh. These contracts will require a satellite relay to be maintained forever? Oh dear. What? Forever? That's scary. Anyway, what I'd like to do is clean up some of our... some of our probes here. So I'm gonna delete the ones that have no solar panels, which I think is all 3 of... Well, I thought these had solar panels. I think they're just too old. The solar panels have degraded at this point, or they're not pointing towards the sun or whatever, but I've gotten all the science we need out of these, I'm pretty sure. So I'm just gonna go ahead and terminate them. Fire Ant 3, terminate. Fire Ant Atmo, terminate. Sunsync still has power, but I'm pretty sure we've gotten all the science from it. Let's warp to where it has connection and check out what does it have. So data, telemetry analysis, video imaging. Yeah, we've done everything we can do there. Right, video imaging. We have full data on space low. Yep. Okay, so sun sync we can terminate. Carpenter Ant 1. What is this guy doing? Oh, this was our early cosmic science, I believe. Magnetic scan is still running. We still have 4 days of data from space high. Okay. Good to know. So that's still doing something. Radiometry here. What are you doing? Carpenter Ant 6 radiometry. Has a Cherenkov detector, but we don't have the right... Yeah. Okay, I remember that now. And this one is a circular polar orbit for infrared radiometry and telemetry, which is just space low. So I guess the question is, do I have radiometry in all the biomes? No, we still need some more for mountains. So that means we don't want to ditch this guy yet, either. So this is all good to go. You know, it would be so dope if you could take notes inside the Kerbalism panel. You know, like if there's a tab down here that said notes, And you could click over there and just type stuff in, and it would stay with that craft that you could access from any place where you could access this menu. That would be neat. All right, and then the grasshoppers are interesting because they don't really have a lot of science in them. 2 of them have the magnetic scan, I think, right? And 2 of them have... 1 and 2 were the same mission. But magnetic scan Earth high is already done, right? Space low is not done though, right? But we have 3 different probes now that have magnetic scan for space low. So that should be done in the next few weeks, I'd guess. Because it's only a 90-day experiment total. No, it's only a 30-day experiment total. And if I have 3 probes going, and we're 90% done, 3 days, 1 day per probe of actual science time. So that's really close to being done. Anyway, the Grasshopper 3 and 4 have the Chernikov, which is going to take a while still. Okay. But one of them is not right? How did that work? Oh, it's good enough for the Chernikov, but number 3 wasn't good enough for the orbit we needed for the contract. That's what it was. So I'll go ahead and leave both for now. They also, the Grasshopper series has, what's it called? Relay satellite, tech level 2 comms, so they can bounce around. So what are we doing? Well, Lunar Flyby and Lunar Impactor. We're going to the moon! That's right, we are going to the freaking moon. It's probably going to be a lot of designing. Whoa. Here in the future, and we're gonna have to figure out how we get to this crazy thing here. So the moon, I guess it's not gonna tell me here, but it's got an inclination, is thing number 1 to notice, which means we have to launch at a specific time of day to get into that inclination. Now, the other tricky part, I'm not exactly sure which one's bigger, the moon's inclination or my latitude. Because there's a property of orbits that it's really weird when you're first thinking about it, but when you launch... So if you imagine going straight east, you can't actually get an orbit that's like going around like the eastern, you know, if you imagine slicing the Earth like this, you can't actually get an orbit that looks like that. So when you go east, what actually starts happening is it creates an orbit that kind of slices through the, you know, you imagine the core of the planet. All orbits have to be through a plane. Orbits create a plane, right? When I say plane, I just mean like if you were to line up an orbit like this, all orbits will slice the planet exactly in half. That is a requirement of every orbit around Earth. So, that being said, that means whatever orbit we get in from here is going to pass over this spot, or close to it, you know, maybe right here is where we circularize or something, but, you know, it's going to be very close to this spot, and it has to slice through the planet. So when you start looking at orbits that are here and slice through the middle, boom, they have to be inclined, right? Like, there's no way... You could go vertical. You can easily get into a polar orbit from anywhere on the planet. And that's what's really interesting, is you can get into a polar orbit from anywhere on the planet, but you cannot get into an equatorial orbit from anywhere on the planet. It almost feels like cheating. Like what's going on? How is that the case? It's very weird how that works. And the reason... Why can't I explain the reason? The reason is because... the Earth is spinning. I'm pretty sure it has something to do with the Earth spinning, but why is my brain not not grasping a way to explain why that doesn't work. Because anywhere on the planet slices the planet that way, but not anywhere on the planet slices the planet this way. Yeah, it's just because you can change the angle. Like, all polar orbits are different from each other, right? Like, if you launch from here, if the planet wasn't rotating, and I know that's a weird thing to say, but just imagine for a moment the planet didn't rotate. Well, then now you're back to being like, everywhere on the planet can only go into a certain set of orbits around itself. You know, from here, you could get into any orbit that slices, you know, this plane easily enough. But then those orbits are going to be different than the ones you could get in from here. But the fact that the planet rotates means that all polar orbits are essentially the same, but all equatorial orbits are not. Well, sorry. All equatorial orbits are the same because they're equatorial, but you get what I'm saying. Like, to get into inclination 0, you have to be on the equator. But to be in a polar orbit, you can be anywhere, because at some point, the polar orbit you want is just the same as a different one because the Earth rotates underneath you. So anyway, what I'm trying to get at is, if let's say the moon had a 0% inclination and it just went like this, well, that would actually be a problem, because then we couldn't easily get into that orbit. And there's this thing called a dogleg where you kind of launch down this direction, and then as you're circularizing, you kind of cancel out that downwards velocity by boosting this way. So it's not quite prograde, it's actually prograde, you know, to the left. And then that ends up getting you at a more equatorial orbit. But it costs a lot of extra delta V. So what I'm getting at is, we have to launch at a specific time of day to match the moon's inclination, and then, you know, we'll be in the same plane as the moon. You want to be coplanar. Your orbit and the moon's orbit is coplanar, and then you raise your apoapsis to be at the same distance as the moon. Now, the problem is the moon doesn't have, it's not always at the same, whatchamacallit. Can I add the sphere of influence to this? I'm curious if I can add sphere of influence, because that would be kind of nice. Doesn't seem like I can. Anyway, let's get to testing, because we just need to figure this out. You guys don't want to hear me talk about inclinations for 3 hours. So let's look at... So I have been testing some things, by the way. This is not my... I played for a while last night. I've decided on the series name Cobalt, and this is something I was playing with for the Moon Impactor. I had some fun with text, calling it the Moon Rod. Kind of the idea of rods from God, if you've ever heard of that phrase for, what are they called? Why can't I think of the name? Not railguns. What are they called? Just like mass drivers in sci-fi, where it just launches some projectile at insane speeds. You call them rod from God, and then this end towards moon, because I thought that was funny. Though we probably won't end up actually pointing that towards the moon. So this was my idea to start with, and I was thinking we could use near-Earth avionics plus some RCS with a generic RCS thruster. And the reason that's helpful is we have full control over this. We can ignite it as many times as we want, you know, and then we can point in any direction we want, and so we can easily fine-tune our trajectory to actually hit the moon. The downside of this is it's very heavy, right? Near-Earth avionics, and I set these to be as light as they could be. Our interplanetary avionics is the best we can do right now. And they still weigh 77 kilograms. And the problem with that is, because it's 77 kilograms, it's a lot more than we need. We only need our lunar impactor to be 40 kilograms. And so we're wasting a lot of delta V to get that amount of kilograms into an impact trajectory with the moon. So I'm still not sure if I want to do it that way, but it's certainly an option. And then the other option would be to go a different route and just impact with a science probe. If we impact with a science core, the method is going to have to look a little different. So the method to impact science cores often uses a lot of small adjustment motors that each are only going to be a couple delta V each. You know, this is 400 kilograms, but imagine this wasn't 400 kilograms. You know, the idea here is that these little guys will be able to add a couple delta V each, and then you're spin stabilized, and you're gonna undershoot a little bit with your prograde. But the problem with that is you can't do any radial or normal burning. So if you end up undershooting, and by undershooting, I actually mean going underneath the moon's orbit, like if you're not exactly coplanar with the moon, then prograde might not be good enough. You might need normal or anti-normal to actually move up to make sure you don't go underneath the moon in terms of its plane. So in my testing, I actually did one or two of these tries, and it kind of didn't work. I ended up going underneath the moon one time, and there's nothing you can do to fix going underneath the moon. So this is how they've done it in the past, and obviously, like, if we're precise enough, if we are perfectly coplanar with the moon, then that does mean that prograde will be good enough to guarantee an impact with the moon. So I guess the question I have to figure out for myself first is, can we launch coplanar with the moon perfectly, such that we're not going to have these issues? So I guess what we want to do is open up... So the cobalt here is basically what we had for the grasshopper. I added 4 boosters. It's the same RD-0105 here. And obviously the fairing here is a lot taller. And I used some of our fancy new solid boosters. This is the Altair, which we already talked about. The awesomeness of the Altair is just way high. It's so cool. 255 ISP compared to 237. The variance is a lot lower, and the residuals are lower, which means we end up getting even more delta V out of it. And then the TWR is technically lower, but that's not really relevant. It's already a huge TWR. So big benefit, and the dry mass ratio is better. And then there's this guy, the Antares, which is made by the same company, and this thing is even crazier. 256 ISP. We've got a great TWR, and the dry mass ratio of this one, I really wish, by the way, this is totally a side note, I wish they would give you the math on the dry mass ratio for solid boosters, because it's very relevant to kind of how effective they are. You know, when you look at something, it's easy to get sucked into the TWR and the ISP, but those two things alone doesn't tell you the whole story. You need the dry mass ratio to know how good they are, and it doesn't tell you. So you have to check this, and you can see, okay, we've got 946 kilograms of wet fuel in here, and 77 is the dry mass. So, you know, you can tell by that math, that's like a 12 or 13 times more wet mass than dry mass. That's huge, right? Even the Altair, which is strong, is not even a 10 times. You can also just divide the first number by the second number, like 77 out of 1022. You know, there's a lot of different ways to do the same calculation, but the essence is just what's the ratio. And you can calculate that ratio as saying, like, it's 1 to 10, 1 part dry for every 10 parts wet. You could calculate it as 9% of the total mass is dry. You could calculate it the other direction and say you have 10x more wet mass than dry mass. You know, there's a lot of ways to say the same thing. Apparently I'm feeling very mathy and analytical today. I apologize. No, I don't apologize. That's why you guys are watching this channel. This is how I always am. You like it, apparently. Or you put up with it, one of the two. Anyway, so the Antares is dope and provides a lot of Delta V. You can see 2744, plus the Altair giving me 1922. So we have a lot of solid rocket Delta V here. And we spin stabilize with these Mercury posigrades. The reason for that is I actually wanted a slow spin, because if we are in fact doing it this way, we have to stop spinning. Yeah, I hadn't really considered that at first. And when you spin stabilize your solid rocket motors, if you then want to control this thing afterwards, you have to pay for that spin to slow down the spin in nitrous oxide. So I actually wanted a slower spin, so I got these Mercuries because they actually end up weighing a little bit less. They're only 2 kilograms a piece rather than the spin motors, which are 6 kilograms a piece. So they're a lot lighter, but they actually have, you know, back to wet mass calculations. As far as their actual thrust time, they hold 573 mils, and these things only hold 111. So they weigh 3 times as much, but they only hold 2 times as much fuel. So all that to say, these Mercuries are way better at spin stabilization than the spin motors. And I think the variance was even smaller. Yeah, look at the variance and residuals. It's all really close to 0. These are very consistent solid motors. Whereas these guys are, you know, 3.5, 5.3%, 3.5%. I still don't know what MR means. I would love for someone to tell me what MR means. It's 0 on solid motors, but it's non-zero on liquid motors. You can see here, where does it show me the numbers? On this engine, it gives me the numbers somewhere here. 0.5% MR. What is MR? I don't know what MR means. Is it mean residuals? I could see it being that, but then it's saying standard deviation. So is it saying the standard deviation of the residuals is 0.5%, but there's a minimum of 0.3%? So does that mean it averages to 0.8%? Like, I don't know what it means. I couldn't tell you. If anyone knows how that math works, please hit me up. I'm very interested in all the math of those numbers. So far, I haven't been able to get clear answers from anyone, even what these mean. And please don't leave a comment saying it means that the ISP varies by 3.5%. I can read that. That's not what I'm asking. What I'm asking is, what does that actually mean? Does that mean that on each tick, the game is calculating, you know, a random ISP value that it's actually going to calculate the thrust from? You know, like, because we know the flow. Again, just skip 5 minutes ahead if you're not interested in this conversation, because I love this stuff. So the flow of this is 7.43 kilograms per second. ISP is basically a multiplier on how much thrust do you actually get from ejecting that much mass, right? So if ISP is 3.5% higher, we would get a little bit more thrust in that tick. If it's a little bit lower, we would get a little bit less thrust. So I understand that. And the flow itself is also variable. So those two things are varying. I understand that. The question is that 5.3% above or below? Does that mean each tick, it picks a random number between negative 5.3% and positive 5.3% and applies that? Does that actually vary larger than this, but that's the average variance? You know, does it actually follow the bell curve? Where I could have one tick where it's actually 10% away off of the rated thrust, or, well, I should say the rated flow. But that's just the average variance, you know, variance as calculated literally by the square of the standard deviation. I just don't know. I don't know what that means. I understand the idea that it's telling me it varies somehow 5%-ish. but I actually, mathematically, it's not very clear what that's actually doing. So if anybody knows the answer to that and can say more than just it varies 5%, I would love to hear that. And I also just have no idea what MR stands for. So I'd love to hear that too. Anyway, I apologize if you found that uninteresting. I find those things very interesting. I love rocket science. So here we are. I also found a bug last night. And it's kind of a bug, it's kind of a feature. According to the game, anything under 1 kilogram is treated as if it actually weighs 1 kilogram. But MechJeb doesn't know this. Kerbal Engineer Redux doesn't know this, so the DV numbers are actually wrong. So I was having this weird issue when I was testing a different moon probe, and it kept having an apoapsis that was lower than expected, and it's because I had 6 of these things. And these things weigh less than 1 kilogram each, and so it was counting all of them as weighing 2 kilograms for the physics, but not for the delta V calculations. So it was telling me I expended 3150 delta V, but I was looking at my orbit and I'm like, the math does not say I expended 3150 delta V, because that should have gotten me into a 400 million meter orbit, and I'm only in a, 200 megameter orbit. So all that to say, it was really informative. But then I also received an additional piece of information that the minimum might actually be 1 kilogram. All that to say, if these modular RCSs are less than 1 kilogram, we actually have a problem. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to add 20 of them, and I'm going to see how much our weight goes up by. We're at 52, and that takes us to 71. So these are technically lighter than 1 kilogram each. So I need to increase the scale slightly here. Let's go to 1.2. And now let's try again. 53 kilograms goes to 75. So adding 20 of them added 22 kilograms. So that should, let's actually test this. I hope you guys find this interesting. Should I leave this in the video? I'm gonna leave it in the video. I hope you guys like sciencing things. You are watching a series on RP-1. So the easiest way to science this is to just take, some avionics. Near Earth is fine. In fact, I shouldn't really need to change any of this. We'll make it lighter just so that small things have a better controllable mass. Needs to be like 1 ton, and we'll go with 2000. Apply, resize. Okay, so we've got that, and then we're gonna add just a simple Baby Sergeant. Let's add something with a little more punch. Something like that. And then I'll just throw on the bottom a decoupler and a tank. And then on that, we're gonna throw some RCS thrusters. Whoa, not 20 of them. Just so that we can orient this thing to prograde. And then we're gonna set those to nitrous. High pressure, fill the nitrous. Okay, so that should allow us to orient with MechJeb. Take this shroud off. I wanna see the Baby Sergeants. Okay, so this thing has 1839 delta V. Now, if I pull up my handy dandy, and by the way, there's this thing called rocketreference.com that you can use to get similar numbers. I use my spreadsheet. My spreadsheet numbers agree with Rocket Reference, so I think the math is correct. Anyway, I'm gonna go into a 145x 145 orbit, and that has a speed of 7821.3. Now, if I add to that 1839, then we get 7821.3 plus 1839. We get a final speed of 9660. So now what I need to figure out is what apoapsis should that give us? Oh, but I need to add a bunch of light parts first. Hold on, this is the wrong number. So first we want to test, I'm not going to prove to you that these are going to mess things up. So we need to add something that's between 1 and 2 kilograms. That will tell us if the game registers 1.5 kilograms properly, or something just over 1. So I do think the best thing to test, and it needs to be not physics-less. If it's a physics-less part, it just adds its mass to the parent part. And then that actually works properly, even if it's less than 1 kilogram. So I think these are actually our best bet. And so if I had 20 of these, that is only 12 kilograms. So that means each of them is slightly more than 1 kilogram, right? No. No, I need this to add, sorry, no, those are less than 1 kilogram. I need it to add 30 kilograms when I add this, and then that will be a good test to see if it works properly. So I need it to be 810 kilograms total here. Okay, so right there. And then we're gonna add a bunch more. So we should be pretty, like if these actually weigh 1.5 kilograms, according to the physics that the game will do, I will get 1506 delta V out of it. But if the game is rounding to the nearest 2 kilograms, then I will not get this much delta V, because there will be an extra 20 kilograms on this. And that would lower our delta V by quite a bit. I don't know, is there something that weighs 20 kilograms? I mean, one of these sideways is basically what we're looking at. So, you know, we should get about 50 less delta V in effect. So this is a good test. And you might be like, what's the point of this? Why does it even matter? It matters because we basically will get the wrong delta V if we use anything lighter than 2 kilograms if the fix doesn't work like we think it does. If the fix does work, then this should work. And then that means we can use anything that weighs above 1 kilogram, which is a big difference for these small little motors. So it does matter. All right, so we're gonna simulate this. So 1506 delta V is what we're adding. So I'll just play with the apoapsis on my sheet until we get 1506 raising. So what about 5 millimeters? That's 997. So what about 20 millimeters? That's 2083, so that's too much. 15 millimeters? 10 millimeters? Okay, we're really close. 9 millimeters. That's 1448, 95, 00000. 1491, 9700. That's 1508. So we should get right around 9700 for our apoapsis. So I should be able to simulate this. Do I need to do anything else? I don't think so. And then 145 kilometer. I'm leaving this in the episode because I think you guys enjoy the sciencing, the scientific method, but maybe you don't, and you're skipping this section. Feel free to skip. This is all we're doing for a minute here. All right, so we're gonna point prograde here. I have to turn on RCS, fire the motors. Whoa. It's too powerful. It's so powerful, it's overshooting. Okay, so point prograde. And then I should just be able to fire, and we're good to go. And we have a final of 9826, and delta V expended here is 1517. So if I type in 9826 300, we get a 1519. Perfect. So they agree. And that means that we're good to go. Sweet. Okay, so the minimum is 1 kilogram. This is relevant for, first of all, it's relevant for these things. Just don't use these things because they weigh less than 1 kilogram. These weigh more than 1 kilogram, so they're fine. Assuming they have enough fuel in them. It's possible that with a low enough fuel amount, these might weigh less than 1. These weigh less than 1, but I don't know if those are physicsless. Are these physicsless? Let's find out. These are... It's hard to tell because this weighs 100 kilograms. So I need this to be lighter. So let's switch to Science Core with a very small amount of power. Yeah, these are not physicsless, which means you can't use these. Never use these. The other things you can't do is really tiny. So these should be okay because these are over 1 kilogram, right? 0019 means 1.9 kilograms. So these are fine. But what you can't do is make these too tiny, right? We decided that these are only... That's only adding 6 kilograms for 10 of them. So these are about 600 grams a piece. So like that's too light. This would give you incorrect delta V numbers on your craft. The other thing that I've found you can pretty easily get under 1 kilogram is solar panels, right? Because you resize them and you can pretty easily get less than 1 kilogram. Like right here, here's 1 kilogram and we still get 8 watts, right? There might be a world where you're like, I only need like 10 watts. And so you add 2 of these and they're 0.0007, boom, you're screwed. Because these are not physicsless, and so these are gonna mess with your delta V readouts. So just make sure that, oh, by the way, I should add, Principia fixes this. If you're playing with the Principia mod, then you don't need to worry about this. But if you're not playing with the Principia mod, then this is still a problem. Anything less than 1 kilogram that is not physicsless will screw up your craft's delta V readouts. Now, if the whole thing already weighs 400 kilograms, maybe it doesn't matter. But when you're dealing with really light probes, it can screw you up. So anyway, I hope that was helpful. I hope you liked that 20-minute tangent. If you didn't, I'm sorry, but I enjoyed it. And hopefully it was informative. So anyway, let's see if we can get this thing to the moon. To the moon! And again, just to walk through the design, this has a controllable mass of 500. The communication is disabled because we have a communotron that we made sure it could get to the moon's distance, which is about 350. Let's just go with 450 to be extra cautious. And besides, you always want a little bit of extra. 450 million meters. I mean, we have more than enough at the good station. We can't connect to the bad stations, but can we connect to the mid stations? These ones, Canberra. Yeah. See, that way we can still connect to Goldstone, Canberra, and Madrid at 246 bits a second. And you should, I think, always have access to one of the mid stations. And there's 2 of the high tier stations. There's Evpatoria, and isn't there one more? I thought there was one more. Or is it just showing the same one twice? Yeah, that's also the Evpatoria. So I guess there's only one really high power tracking station, and then there's 3 mid power tracking stations: Madrid, Canberra, and Goldstone. I should probably look on the map to see where those are distributed. Am I always going to have access to one of those? I'm not sure. Because that could be another way this mission gets screwed up, is we impact the moon when none of the stations are pointing towards me. That would be bad. Anyway, we've got 226 delta V in this final thruster to be able to orient ourselves and add a little bit of directional boost. Then we have our Altair, then we have our Antares, and then we have our decoupler. This is spin stabilized before that stage. So I mean, all of this looks reasonable. The amount of delta V we need... Oh, hold on. This stage is going to need RCS as well if I want it to be in orbit. But this stage can't get to orbit. Never mind. Sorry. This is for a different idea. This right now is for the crazy idea where we launch at exactly the right time of the month. And we launch straight into our lunar not injection, but I guess it's a translunar injection sort of, but impactor, that's what I'm going for. Our impactor, this one is not built to orbit and then do a prograde burn, because to do that, we would have to get into orbit before our solid motors. I guess I could, see the delta V is not right. You need about 3,000 delta V for your injection burn, like 3,100. And so I'd have to have a 3,100 stage of solid. It's not quite set up that way. I guess I could change it, but then we need near-Earth avionics that can handle that way. I don't know. Let's just try this. Let's try this. It's enough total delta V, so if we get the timing right, it should work. So we're going to try to get the timing right. Which means we're going to simulate. We're not going to start in orbit. And then the time. I mean, it feels so random. How would I know exactly when? There's that lunar injection mod. Maybe I should look at that. But it also has to be the right time of the month, right? Like, it can't just be the right time of day to get into the proper inclination. See, this is giving you the 2 windows per day that you can launch. And this is saying the inclination you'll be in if you launch now. What does that mean? Is that saying the relative inclination between you and the moon? It might be. Yeah, I think that's the relative inclination between you and the moon. No, it's not relative. I don't think, because it's not going to 0. I think it's saying the inclination your orbit needs to be on to match the moon's if you were to launch now. I think that's what that's saying. So 2855 is the moon's inclination. Interesting. I think that's what that's saying. I could be wrong about that. So yeah, I guess we'll just, this feels like such a harebrained idea. I think we should modify this. I don't want to have to deal with that nonsense. So let's modify this. It's called Cobalt for a reason. This ain't no grasshopper. Okay, so new plan. New plan is probably Antares last, because the Altair is not enough. So quick calculation says we need about 3150 delta V for this final injection. Now that's too much, but we can reduce the fuel in here. It has a really great wet mass ratio, so reducing the mass by a bit isn't too bad for efficiency. So we want to get this down to like, let's see, 3150. Often you get a little bit more. MechJeb is conservative, so we don't want to be exactly 3150 because then it'll actually get too much. So I'm thinking 3100 is probably about right. I'm going the wrong direction. 310. Okay, 320. 350. 340. 335. There we go. All right, so that gives us our 3100. We'll probably need about 50 more delta V, which we have, plus some maneuvering delta V. So this should be about right, and if this goes a little bit too far, then we can retrograde because we have full control here. That's the great part. And this all weighs less than 1 ton, but that's only configured for half a ton. That's acceptable, though. Wait. No, hold on. Hold on, what am I thinking? We get into orbit, and then this should be able to control... I need a little bit more RCS to control this thing? Center mass is there, so these will provide some attitude control. By the way, I forgot to make these bigger in this world. What's the center of mass without any of that? So I could put these at the top, and then they would have control over when we do our trans-lunar burn as well. I think I'm gonna put them up here. And I've talked about this before, if we really want to be efficient, which I think I do, just because this is good design, we're gonna have to open up the control toggles here, and we're gonna have to turn off, we're basically gonna need 2 pairs. So I'm gonna go down to this. And each pair is gonna have a different setting. We're gonna need RCS build aid for this for sure. But basically we need to see if the attitude control, and we need to enable both. So that's rolling. Obviously they're all gonna participate for roll, but for pitch and yaw, I don't want... Oh, no, we're good. Sorry. It's only when they have the vertical thrusters that we need to turn something off. Because if this had thrusters up and down, it would also be thrusting that one from the top, right? Because that would also create this yaw motion. So I'd have to turn that off for that thruster because it's a very inefficient usage of fuel, but it would still use it. But in this case, because we don't have the up or downs, we're actually fine. So that's kind of nice. Okay, so that problem is averted. I can now turn these off again. Okay, so once this is in orbit, I think I'm okay. How much power do we have, by the way? Because this thing eats power quickly. Oh, it eats power quickly. Right. I forgot to mention this. I have a second Science Core Avionics here, and the reason is because this thing eats freaking 49 watts, even at only half a ton. Like, it's crazy how much power it eats. And I don't want to have 49 watts worth of solar panel. In fact, I probably have too much solar panel, now that I'm looking at it. Yeah, we can make this a lot lighter. Hold on. Panel scale. $8 watts, that would be 16 watts total. Yeah, because we'll want to point it towards the sun probably when it's on its trans-lunar injection burn. But yeah, now I don't have the right numbers here. Did that actually change much? 3087 went to... 2104, 228, 224. That changed surprisingly little. I guess that's because this thing weighs 78 kilograms. And this weighs 9, and this weighs 26. So the whole thing is already a couple hundred kilograms. So saving 1 kilogram, yeah, it doesn't do much. But every little bit helps. Anyway, let's reduce this fuel by a couple units to compensate. 332. There we go. Anyway, we can disable permanently the power-hungry avionics, and then we'll only have this guy, which is 90 milliwatts, plus our science. So that's the plan. That's why I need a second avionics. The other option would just be to carry big enough solar panels to constantly power this the whole time. Those are my two options. I don't know which is... You know what? I'm wondering if it's just better to do it the other way. If I just have 9 kilograms worth of solar panel, then I don't have to disable this one? There's an interesting idea. So we need about 60 watts total. How big do these need to get before they do 30 watts a piece? It's kind of ironic. They weigh about 9 kilograms. So, and cost-wise, I think the panels actually cost more. So let's not do that. And they weigh more than 1 kilogram, so that's good to go. So this episode has already been almost an hour. Oh my god, this is gonna be a long one. Hope you guys are excited about that. Okay, so this needs to be in orbit. That's that. I think this is ready to go. Theoretically, if I were to simulate this, this part alone should be able to make it to the moon. I should probably test that before we go any further. So I'm going to save this as Cobalt-1 test. I can overwrite it. And then I'm going to attach the rest of the stuff and save that as the regular Cobalt-1 here. So then I can delete this. Now I've confused myself, but this is all still the same thing. Test, simulate, start in orbit. I really wish there was a moon inclination button. Because we want an inclination of, what was it, 28.55, but the longitude of ascending node, we're just gonna have to guess. Well, I guess we'll start with 0. What even is... Hold on. Longitude of ascending node. It's the angled from a specified reference direction. Well, what is the reference direction? Earth's equatorial plane as the reference plane. Well, that makes sense. But what is the first point of Aries as the origin of longitude? The heck is that? It's used as a reference point in celestial coordinate systems. Okay, what I'm not fully understanding is the longitude of ascending node that would match the moon's orbit, is that the same throughout the year, or is this changing throughout the year? And the thing that would make the most sense to me is that it would be the same throughout the year, but that certainly isn't necessarily the case. Oh, we need more avionics. Anyway, our orbit is this. And the moon's orbit is... Ooh, well, that's convenient. That's very close. We're 1.1 degrees off. So let me open up the Kerbal Engineer Redux Rendezvous. Let's actually compare. What does MechJeb give us for Rendezvous? Because it's worth looking at both. Relative inclination, they both give me the same answer of 1.11. So I have the wrong... Well, it's hard because I don't know if that means I have the wrong longitude of ascending node or I have the wrong inclination. Shoot. I wish there was a way to see just the moon's inclination to Earth. Because even with all of this information, I don't know which number to tweak. I don't know if my inclination is not matching the moon or if it's the longitude of ascending node that's not matching the moon. And longitude of ascending node basically would rotate at what point am I crossing over the equator? Like I could move that over here a little bit and then I might match the moon perfectly. Or is it my actual orbit, you know, that needs to be tilted more or less? Is there a way for me to find out with this number? Do you give me more? Huh. SOI altitude is handy. Surface gravity is also handy. Wait, no, that's... Oh, is this for Earth? Oh, this is for Earth. Just kidding. That's not for the body that it's focused on. And for rendezvous, there's bearing to target, relative velocity, altitude, relative orbital speed, angle to relative ascending node. Yeah, that's not what we want. None of this is what we want. You know what I can do is I think I can just open up the Kerbal Space Program files. All right, I'll be right back. Haha, I found the gold mine. Okay, so turns out in the Kerbal Space Program game data folder, you open up the Real Solar System mod folder, and then you hit RSS Copernicus, and then you can look at Earth system and then moon, and they've got the numbers right here for me that I can copy paste into a note. The notes does not exist in map view. Weird. It's because the Blizzy toolbar is absent in map view. I wonder if that's a setting I can change. Anyway, the moon. Let me make a new note called body info. So the moon has inclination of that. And longitude of ascending node of 2 point... let me just copy it. It's a lot of decimals. And then argument of periapsis, I don't think we need that, but this basically tells you it tells you on the orbit. So the inclination, right, it tells you how tilted it is, like from being flat. So that's thing number one. Longitude of ascending node tells you what angle is it, you know, like where, basically what rotation of this are we gonna see it? Yeah, I think you get what I'm saying. It's kind of like spinning it around this way. The whole sideways dish. It's like if it was rotating on a table, you know, and like wobbling. It's like where does the wobble, where does the bottom of the plate hit the table? Is it here? Is it over here? So that's the longitude of ascending node. Again, I'm not sure if that's in reference to the sun, to the galaxy, or to Earth. And then the argument of periapsis is because it's eccentric, that's saying where where is the periapsis along the plate? Is it at the spot, you know, where it hits the table? Is it at the opposite of that? Is it over here? You know, where are the periapsis and apoapsis around the plate? So that's the argument of periapsis. So those three things basically give you everything you need, you know, mixed with the basic info like gravity and semi-major axis and all that. But anyway, all that to say, I can use this delicious information, hopefully, to get into exactly the same orbit as the moon. So if I do simulate 28.36 and a longitude of ascending node of we'll just go with 2.3. We should be within 0.1 degrees of the moon when we target it for relative inclination. Let's see if that works. Yes, relative inclination 0.003. Perfect. And what that means is we can get a rendezvous with the moon basically from any part of my own orbit. If you, by the way, if you're curious, if you're in an orbit that is very different, like let's say we were in a polar orbit, as long as the polar orbit, oh man, this is so hard to describe with that. I wish I could draw on the screen. If I could draw little lines on the screen, I feel like this would be such a good teaching tool, but not being able to draw anything makes it really hard. But basically, whatever orbit I'm in, if you imagine it being a big infinite plane, it's going to slice this plane somewhere. The only way that doesn't happen is if you're not orbiting around the same body, right? But we're orbiting around the same body. So my plane is going to slice this plane somewhere. So then let's say I was in a polar orbit around the Earth right here. Well, I could just zoom out like this, and now you can see that my orbit is slicing through the moon's orbit at this point here and this point here. So what I could do is I could, at this point in my polar orbit, thrust prograde. Let's say I'm going up across the Earth here. Thrust prograde, raise my periapsis on this side to where it's at that point. And it would be really have to be well timed because the moon would be coming this way and I'd be coming this way. But if you time it right, boom, you can impact the moon from the North Pole of the moon, right? That's totally possible. You just have to time it right. And it's hard because you can't time if you are in the correct part of your polar orbit compared to the moon being in the correct part of its month-long orbit, right? So now the nice part is, orbital period is only an hour and a half. So you have a new chance to launch every single hour and a half, which makes it pretty easy to make it happen. But if I was in a slower polar orbit, we might never have a good window. That wouldn't be wasteful, delta V wise. Anyway, I hope you guys like talking orbital mechanics. This is the orbital mechanics episode, apparently, and figuring out bugs in MechJeb. But let's actually test this. Let's see if we can get to the moon. The transfer time of Kerbal Engineer Redux is pretty handy. So I'm just going to use that for rendezvous. So the transfer angle is telling me, and I don't know what all this takes into account. Like if you're in a non-circular orbit, does Kerbal Engineer know how to handle that? I'm not sure. But basically, if you just thrust prograde the right amount of delta V when you're at the correct transfer angle, then you end up with an encounter most of the time. I don't know how it maths it out, but it knows. So we'll go to here. Boom. I'm a little bit off, but that should be within tolerance. Turn on my RCS. Smart ass to prograde. Oh, damn it. Okay, let's try again. This time with proper staging. Check yo staging. Goodness. All right, we need our RCS to be activated first. Thank you very much. And then warp to correct phase angle. Stop. Okay, prograde. It's not working. Okay, interesting. I thought we might need to hit spacebar again because they hadn't activated. Why were they? Oh, you know that thing I ignored when we first. Whoa, that was weird. That thing I ignored when we first launched. The whole insufficient avionics. Yeah, that might do it. That might do it. All right, controllable mass needs to be, let's try 0.9 tons. We'll just go 1 ton for consistency across vessels. And 1,000 kilojoules. We will resize it to fit. We lost some delta V from doing that. I need to add a couple to you. 335. 340. 345. Perfect. Okay, simulate that. That's all still correct. Let's fix the staging too while we're here. Now this should be able to get a moon impactor going. And then I just need to put this thing in orbit and we're good to go. It's so easy. It's just rocket science, guys. Come on. There's nothing going on here. What does the warp helper have for me here? Can we warp to maneuver node phase angle? Phase angle of what? Is it between you and your target? Does it know? Let's try it. Because phase angle means regarding the target, right? Yeah. Perfect. Okay. Thank you, warp helper. That was very convenient. All right, now we're gonna get prograde going here. There we go. Now our nitrous oxide is working for us. Very slow movement. I believe you can turn up the speed somewhere, like the maximum rotation rate that it goes for, but it's kind of built to go slowly to not waste fuel, which I appreciate. It just means you need to start rotating, you know, a minute before you want to actually get somewhere. And given this is only going to be a 20-second burn with a perfect... I don't think we need to deal with spin. All right, let's do it. 3, 2, 1. I mean, I could even use RCS to stay oriented properly. Here, to prograde. And then we can watch our apoapsis grow. And it should get relatively close. Perfect. Wow. Might even be a little bit too much, actually. But, you know, that's just about right. I guess this is on the close end of the moon. I think the moon's periapsis is around here. Anyway, so now we can focus our view on the moon. Stage a little bit here. Stage the generic engine. And now we can see that relative to the moon, we can lower our periapsis here. I'm gonna go into slow motion. And look at how perfect that periapsis is in the plane, the orbital plane of the moon. So then we can get this nice and centered, an impact just right into the smack dab middle there. Perfect. And now the final thing we're going to do is sun down, which will mean we are down from the sun. And that should... these will auto extend if we are actually playing with the craft, you know, launching from orbit. So that shouldn't be a problem. And then once we're oriented towards the sun, we're still on track for the moon. So now what I can do is disable avionics permanently. And now this avionics is still good to go, taking way less power. We're only sucking 8 watts. And I'm guessing most of that is from a science experiment? What science experiment do I have that's running? Oh, I'm in hyperwarp. No, that still doesn't answer my question. How am I using 8 watts? Oh, the idle power of a communotron is 8 watts. There you go. That answers my question. Okay, but anyway, we come out right side, start charging back up. And yeah, I mean, this thing is gonna hit the moon. It's gonna take a few days. Get there. But there we have a moon encounter. Kerplink. Beautiful. And now at this point, let's just make sure we get the contracts complete. So lunar flyby has to be within, where is this moon thing? There it is. That has to be within 5 million meters. Okay. So we'll warp a little bit here. Down to 10. 8. 6. Okay, there we go. Lunar flyby is complete. I wonder how much science we're going to get from this. We've only got 15 minutes till impact. That's not very much time. But we should get a little bit of data from the camera. Wait, why are you not running? Wait, what do you mean waiting? What? Oh. It already sent all the data from Moonspace High. Oh, we're not in Moonspace Low yet. Right. Okay, when do we get Moonspace Low, I wonder? Maybe 1 million? Where can we see that? There's somewhere Kerbal Engineer has the space low measurement. I can just pay attention to this though to find out, I guess. As soon as these change over, we'll know that we're in space low. Okay, moon space low is 300? No, 250? There it is, 250. Okay. So now we're getting all sorts of new data before we impact. I mean, look, there's a good amount of science piling in here, even though I'm going to impact the moon in 50 seconds. This and towards moon apparently did not work because the sun is up there. But certain times of the year, it might end up working out that way. All right, and then the other one, we need terrain altitude. I did in my simulations last night, I did have one where I didn't get it because I think I was time warped too fast. So there we go. Kaboom. That'll do it. That'll freaking do it. Oh, this is so satisfying. I gotta say, I've enjoyed over 800 hours of Kerbal Space Program in my life, but RP-1 is providing an experience unlike anything I've had before. I thought it was gonna be unfun experience, but it's surprisingly fun to do things that are harder, you know, and that's not surprising for those of you that watch other series on my channel, because I play things like, you know, Pyanodons and Greg Tech New Horizons and stuff like that. So you guys know that in some ways I like hard video games, but I thought it was gonna be just, I don't know, too much paper pushing, too much calculating stuff that didn't work well with the gaming of it. And that's, by the way, for those of you pushing me to install Principia, the reason I haven't is because things like stable orbits disappear, and that requires a lot more manual intervention to like fix orbits of a satellite that you want to be somewhere and stuff like that. And I really enjoy the ComNet part of the game. There's a world where I do that just for fun, and not being able to leave my probes that have perfect satellite coverage alone is kind of frustrating, because they might actually have the capability to keep themselves in a stable orbit for 20 years because I gave them enough delta V for that, but it will require manual intervention from me as a video game player, right? And if there was a way with Principia to automate your probes to like slowly drain fuel, you know, to maintain a perfect orbit that didn't, you know, I don't know if that's possible. But anyway, we need to fix this now. So what we have to do is we have to open the Cobalt 1 test, merge, place it here. How do we do this? I guess we can place it up here, and then I grab everything underneath the decoupler, and then I set that as the new root part. And then I can take this off, and then I can place this. Okay. Frankenstein has been created. So now that should have all the correct things that we just did, including 1 ton controllable mass. Okay, perfect. So as long as I can get this to orbit, we're good to go. So now we need about 9,400 beneath that, and we definitely don't have that right now. We have 7,100. Oh, plus another 9. We're at about 8,000. Okay, so we need about 1,000 more delta V. Do I just need another Antares? Is that the play? Double Antares? Maybe. Or is an Altair even enough for 1,000 delta V? Because this is not a full weight Antares, it's only 700 kilograms. What does an Altair give me? Altair only gives me 526. That's not enough. So I do think an Antares is the way to go. A Nike's pretty terrible, right? Yeah, the dry mass is awful. It's like 40%. And anything heavier is just too heavy. We don't want a Castor on this bad boy. What's a Castor's dry mass, by the way? It's pretty, yeah, the ratio 700 out of 4,000 is like 15%. More than that, actually. Yeah, it's not great. The Antares is the way to go. So I actually think this is the strategy. Oof, it's so tall. Oh, it's so tall. I don't like that. I don't like that at all. But I think if we stage it correctly, this is what we need. And do we want it to spin? I'm gonna say no. I'm gonna say these little RCS thrusters will be enough to keep the torque down, because the torques are going to be so tiny from these, because they're in line with a perfectly balanced craft. There's no imbalances on this craft, so the RCS should be enough. So So I'm going to take off the spin motors. And we're going to make sure the staging's correct. So when we stage the RD-0105, the next stage will be decoupling and firing those RCS thrusters and decoupling. Okay, and then the next stage is going to be firing this motor and the decoupler. Where's the ring decoupler? That one. And activating the RCS for that stage. And then we decouple, and then that's for the moon translunar injection burn. And then that's for correction burns. Okay, that all works. Now how much delta V do we have underneath this? 1729 plus... I wish there was a little app calculator in the game. That would be fun. There probably is an app I can get for that. 17, or a mod I should say. 1729 plus 32, 18 plus 28, 23 plus 894 is 8664 only. Not enough. Hmm. 8664 only. That's not orbit. I mean, maybe a perfectly efficient orbit. But even then, I don't know. Where do I get some more delta V out of this? This guy's already burning for 318 seconds. So I'm not keen on making that a longer burn. Man, we're so close. So close I can taste it. Is there... Where can I save on weight? Don't know. I mean, we're starting to get into a mess if I like want to do a double Antares or something. I don't think that's worth it. Would it be better to have another liquid engine? What would I use? The AJ-10? Let's investigate the AJ-10 instead of an Antares for this. Let's see what that does for us. Give me an isogrid tank. Give me high pressure. Yeah. Can we upgrade this bad boy? We have the AJ-1042, which has a longer burn, lower ISP though, but also lower weight. And as far as the flow, thrust is a tiny bit lower as well. So if I need a really long burn, I can do that. But let's not think that way first. So we can do 115 seconds. So I could do this. And that's 2262 delta V for a total mass of 2604. This is a total mass of 1860, but 1729. Let's bring this down to 1729 delta V, so we can kind of compare. Ooh, we got it exactly right. All right, 2025 kilograms versus 1860. So the Antares is more effective than the AJ-10 because of all that dry mass that these have. Is the answer more Antares? Should I go triple? Triple Antares? That's ridiculous, and I'm not gonna do it, but it honestly might work. Shoot. What do I do? I don't think I have any better... Oh, is this better? Is the Agena better? It weighs more for a worse ISP. That's not good news. And the burn time is less. Okay, definitely not. There's a lot of models that we can look at later, but at least at this configuration is not better than the AJ10. The LR101 is pretty much trash. I feel like we've looked into it, right? It would have to be tank fed. And the ISP is only 233. I mean, that's just not good enough. That's all there is to it. Though the dry mass is tiny, which helps. It's only 4 kilonewton thrust. What do I do? I think we might just have to go fat. Might just have to go fatter. By the way, this has to be taller. This is ridiculous, but it does have to go higher up here. These need way more ejection power. Okay, why don't I now try to maximize this? I think we're just gonna have to go longer. Okay, so let me add this up. We've got 1729, 35, 49, 2690, 874. You know, an easier way for me to do this would be to math out these and subtract them. So, from the delta V I want. So if I want, let's say I want 9100 delta V, then I add 3091 and I add 213. So it's actually 12404 is the number we want here. 12404. So then this engine can burn up to 135 seconds. Currently we have 103. So I could still go a little longer on our LR43 as well. But I mean, I'm getting no delta V from that. Like, barely anything. For adding a lot of kilograms. So that's not the answer. I don't remember what we started at. Shoot. I think it was this one. I don't remember where we were at. What was our length before? What has no tooling cost? I guess that's probably... Well, I've tooled a few things in my days. Okay, that one. Tooling cost went down. So it's probably 5.6 before. But it's possible that was a different launch. I do have the algals. So, do we upgrade our SRB game? Because we need 12,400. I only need a couple hundred more delta V. What's the algal compared to... Are these the same, by the way? These are the same. Yes. They're just two different forms of it. Shouldn't the one with the nose cone be heavier? Wait, what? The one without the nose cone costs more? Maybe that's because you could stack it with something. Alright, so let's take off castors. Let's attempt algals. definitely gets us there, but our mass is scary. So let's compare the algal to the castor. Oh my god. There are castors with nose cones. I'm such a dummy. Wait, these are different. Wait. Why does this have helium and HTP? What the heck? What? Okay, someone's gonna have to educate me. Why does this have HTP in it? And helium. Does it tell me in this? No. There's also upgrades for these? Oh. Oh. Oh my. That's a significant ASL ISP upgrade, and it even has more thrust. I mean, it burns fewer liters per second for more thrust. That's huge. That change alone could do it, especially if I pick the correct castor, because I'm pretty sure these are going to have better delta V because they don't have the wasted, whatever that wasted weight was. Engine. And what's vacuum? Oh, we don't want vacuum castors. Right. But those have even, oh, interesting. Vacuum optimized variant. 273. Okay, well, let's try the SL, sea level optimized variant of the castor. And that gets us to 12305. I mean, that's really close to what we need. What if I have more of these? What if I have 5? 12417. That, oh, this is the wrong staging. 12379. That should do it. Will it do it? I'm expecting to get into orbit with only 9100 delta V here. And this isn't even quite that. Okay, sorry, back to comparing these two. I got distracted with the engine variants. So comparing these, we've got an ISP of that one. The algal, we do not have options. So the ISP is roughly the same. And the dead weight is 651. Sorry, I'm just pulling up my calculator real quick. 651. I never know. Sometimes it's easier to just tab to Chrome and type it in with the keyboard rather than type it into my phone. 651 out of 3973 is 16.4%. And this one is 1402 out of 10020. And that's only 14%. So it's a couple percent less dry mass ratio, but also slightly lower ISP, so that probably cancels out. Oh, no, sorry. Looking at sea level ISP. Yeah, it's 6 lower. So really, these aren't doing that much other than they're a longer burn rather than a shorter burn. Because the thrust here, you can see, is not that much higher. But the mass is 2.5 times. So these are going to burn a lot longer. I could mix. I could do 2 of these and 2 of these. I don't know, guys. Is more boosters the answer? Do I do 6 boosters? Is that insanity? It does get me the delta V I want. Yeah, the staging's correct here. But man, there's no thrust limiters on these. Ooh. I like the blue color. This is called cobalt after all. We're gonna need to do some recoloring here. I mean, my SLT is just through the roof, which is bad. I can already tell you that we're gonna need to increase the mass strength multiplier on these. Because we're gonna have some crazy aerodynamic forces here. Let's try it. Not sure how this is gonna go. But let's try it. Okay, so turn that off. We don't need the rendezvous planner right now. Turn on ascent guidance. PVG ascent settings. So drop solids early, 0.2 sounds fine. Hot staging, we need 1.2 because of that RDO 105. Drop fairings at 60 kilometers seems fine for now. The roll pitch rate, I don't even know. QA limit, or Q alpha limit, let's go to 3200. Because we did improve the mass strength of those. The last stage is 4. And the early shutoff stage is 5. And unguided is 4. Target is 20. Oh, I lost the numbers. 28.36. $145 by $145. That's looking hopeful. All right, let's try it. 3, 2, 1, launch. Oh, avionics control. Yeah. Yep. Okay. I get it. You need to control 68 tons. So let's see what this does to Delta V. 12,472. Oh, we're gonna upgrade it. I'm willing to spend anything for this craft, basically. Because what do I need now? I need 70 tons. That drops me by 20 Delta V. Okay, can I do 70 and 100 kilojoules? No. I must resize. Why can you not give me 70? Frickin' heck. Okay, resize for 71. Then give me 70 and 100 with that size. Goodness. I want the exact number. Don't undershoot it. Okay, let's go again. All right. I cannot wait for this to be fixed where it remembers these settings. I think it was 454. Turn that on. Okay. Moment of truth. Screenshot there. Kind of loud. Gosh, so fast at such a low altitude. Our drag is over 10 meters a second. We're losing so much to drag. Okay, that was cool. That did look cool, I won't lie. Now, are these not helping me to roll? Huh. Normally MechJeb really wants a specific roll. It doesn't seem like it's rolling like it normally does. Huh. I wonder if I need to increase their control deflection a little bit. Okay, now it's trying to roll. Weird. Okay, so there's the fairing. And 5 more seconds. We have success on that. Now we have a long freaking burn. We're gonna fast forward this one. This burn might be too long. My chance of failure is gonna be pretty high with it. This engine is only 45 minutes, but we're gonna burn for 6. So we've got like a 15% chance of mission failure from this engine. That's not good. Not good at all. And because our TWR is so low, like we've had to do this weird like go high, but now we're falling down, but then we're gonna boost sideways and it'll all cancel out because MechJeb's smart. But it is certainly weird. All right, I'm gonna turn on RCS now. Tell if it's spinning because of torque or if that's just the natural change, you know, as we go around the planet. Oh, it wasn't in control that whole time. Oh yeah, our orbit is trash. No, that wasn't what it wanted to do. So we do need a little bit of spin. Huh. Because it didn't kill rotation, it was slightly pitching down when the solid fired, and so it just kept having a little bit of that pitch down rotation. And so over the course of the burn, it didn't do what it wanted to do. So we just need a tiny bit of spin. Like 1 rotation every few seconds is probably enough. So let's throw a couple little baby spin motors on here. And I probably will make it so that they don't even have the full fuel. And they fire... When do they fire? Fire on this stage right here. And I'm gonna go down to like half. Okay. I did make a moon program. I should save things in that. All right. I mean, if this goes a little better, then there might still be a couple steps, but we're basically done with the design if this works. Because we've already tested the upper part. We know the upper part works. So then it's just getting the timing right on when do we launch this. And we're good to go. I do think I want to... Oh yeah, I wanted to increase the... I apologize for how loud that is. And I also would like to add to Kerbal Engineer inclination. So I think I've wondered about that often enough that it's worth adding. Oh, right there. And I want that to be up with the eccentricity, inclination, orbital period. Orbital period, and actually, no, these should be at the bottom. There we go. And we'll put the SMA up one, because that goes with apo and peri, and then orbital period, eccentricity, inclination. Okay. Alright, anyway, back to fast forwarding this nonsense. This clown car of a rocket. This will be a... Gosh, even at 8 times speed, this is 40 seconds. That's crazy. That's totally crazy. Alright. I have hope that this is gonna work. And I'll need to turn off drop solids early at this point. And we also don't want... I don't think hot staging will matter, though. We should be okay on that. Alright, 50 seconds left. Oh, by the way, there's no extra delta V here. Does that mean it literally thinks we're gonna get exactly into orbit? No, it's estimating we're not gonna get into orbit. We're gonna be at 109 by 145. So I actually failed. This is a failure. Interesting. So we're a little short on delta V after all. Probably because this stage is so slow burning. What do we got? Will this be close? It's claiming 110 by 145. And the result is... The reason I care is because we want to see if, like, the spin stabilization actually worked. Oh, that was pretty close. 115 by 145, and that's because we got a little more delta V out of the solid than we expected. So we're very close. I mean, what are we talking here? Let me pull out my calculator. 145 by 145 versus 115 is only 9 delta V that it takes to make up that speed. So we're talking 9 delta V short. Is it? That's it. If I can eke out 9 more delta V, I mean, at this point, we just need a better launch. A better launch profile. 9 delta V is nothing. If I just increase the control deflection on these to like 6, so they have more control. And then I make the craft roll a little quicker so that we waste less delta V going up. If we go to like a 1 degree and a Q alpha limit of 3400, like that alone might get us there. 4, 5, 4. Something's wrong. Sorry. There was no extra delta V over here. That doesn't look right. There should be Stage 5 should have like 1,000 extra delta V. Oh, the numbers are different now, aren't they? No? Yes, it's 6 now. That's the early shut off. My bad. There we go. Oh, could that be why the other one failed? No. No, because it's still... no. We should have... Well, maybe, actually. That could have been it. That could have been why the last launch failed to get into orbit. See, it's trying to roll to the right, but I don't know why. Oh, is it still trying to spin 180? Uh-oh, we lost something. Procedural wing collided into the disk. Oh, okay. I might need 6 wings. Or 3 wings. 4 and 6 don't work well together in terms of radial symmetry. Oh, those need to be dropped early. Okay. Well, aside from that... Let's see what happens now. So, drop the fairings at 60. Hopefully that didn't screw up the staging. Oh, nope, it did. Gosh, frickin' dang it. The number of times I've done that, the hyperwarp seems to not love to work nicely with MechJeb or vice versa. And it ends up double staging a lot of the time. If you increase, this does slow down the hyperwarp, but if you do a slower max delta time, it tends to not skip staging, even when you're hyperwarping. And it kind of looks a little bit smoother. We'll do that. Drop solids early, yes. Oh, we lost some of these. These need to be stronger. I didn't notice that part. See, now it worked properly with the staging. Okay. Here we go. This one, I'm feeling good about this. Well, according to the calculation, we will have 10 delta V to spare. And the SRB will probably give us slightly more than it's guessing it will, so we should actually end up in a slightly better orbit than it's advertising. So I think we were able to get our launch profile a little bit more efficient, but we need to make these wings stronger, and I need to put 6 wings on the first stage. That's the plan anyway. I should turn on RCS. Not that it matters, because this stage won't have control. Because it's too heavy. This second Antares makes this whole thing like, you know, over 2 tons, and this can only control 1 ton, I think. Yeah, 1 ton. That little bit of spin makes it so that if there was a little bit of pitching down, you know, because of gyroscopic precession, now that pitching down turns into pitching sideways, but then that turns into pitching up, and it just creates a slight wobble that we really can't even see, but it's probably there. And then we don't actually have issues. That's great. And final orbit is slowing down. And we get 142 by 183. Perfect. All right. It's not quite perfect. 183. I'm not totally sure. Is that big enough to mess us up? 183 kilometers. So 183, that's only a 20 delta V difference if we wanted to reduce our orbit so that it is a perfect 145. But I can't do that yet. So my question now is, at the 185, how fast are we going? And if we're going to raise our apoapsis to the, 385 million. It's 3138 versus 3140. Okay, it's about the same. I mean, it should be within the range where we can fix it with this final engine. And then the moon, obviously we have a terrible, because we launched at the wrong time. Oh, what's our final inclination, by the way? 28,346. Nice. Very close to what we wanted of 2836. It's within 0.02 degrees. Perfect. Okay, well, I think we are gonna probably call this an episode because this is now, with a couple more tweaks to improve it, and then we'll simulate it one more time. But this is now the craft that is going to go to the moon for the first time in human Kerbal history. 12,447. Let's make sure this doesn't screw us up too much. That is 4 delta V. We'll go to 4.5 on the strength of those. And then on these, 12,445. We have 6 of them. I mean, that really doesn't change anything. It'll just give me better attitude control even. Wow. What a heckin' thing. Let's color this, and then I think we'll be done with the episode. We're gonna go blue paint. That doesn't look good. What looks good? Blue. Maybe a black top. Yeah, there we go. Recolor. Here, why don't I just copy this? Open recoloring, store pattern, open this. Load pattern. Recoloring, load pattern, recoloring. Whoa. That one's weird looking. Oh, it's because they're the try. Open recoloring, load pattern. Oh my gosh. How many parts? There we go. All right. So, the Cobalt 1 is ready to go. We will need a new launch complex for it. Wasn't there one other change I was going to make? Shoot, what was it? Those are stronger. We have 6 of those. And I felt like there was one other little tweak I wanted to make. No, I think it's good. Toggle open close. Okay, so save into the moon program. And I'm just curious, if we make this shorter now, how much do we lose? We lose a lot. That's just such a freaking efficient engine. We can't change it. And I don't think there's anything else we can make any lighter anywhere. Wait. Oh my god. Face palm. I was using a high pressure tank to hold the fuel for the LR-43 when it doesn't need a high pressure tank. So 12443 delta V. 12833. Oh my god. Although, is this heavier? I want to go for the same weight. What do we get for the same weight if we change it? So we've got 69084. I need to write this down. I always think I'll remember these numbers. Like I'm gonna remember these numbers. 69084 and 12443 delta V. If we switch, I'm so mad at myself right now. Look at the dry mass. We were carrying 1.63 tons of dry mass. Oh my god. Oh my goodness. I have 12833, which is 400 more delta V, and it only weighs 67,551, which is 500 kilograms lighter. Oh my goodness. So that means I don't need this many castors. Oh, that's huge. Can I go down to two of? Can I go down to none? Okay, I can't go down to none. Oh my goodness, though. Maybe I can. Because what if now I just go longer on the... Because the engine can support 135 seconds. So can I go 135 seconds? Oh my goodness, guys. I'm going to be able to get this thing in at 50 tons. This was the mistake of a lifetime. I wonder if any of you, because I'm ahead in the recordings, so it's possible that you've already left comments telling me, were all of my grasshoppers this way? Is that why Grasshopper was such a expensive series? Is because I was using this stupid high pressure tank where I didn't need it? Oh, that's so frustrating. 12443 is what we had before, so I don't want to undershoot that. Get up to 1.4. Okay. That's an extra 40 delta V over what we had before. And it's only... Oh my gosh. Well, I feel kind of stupid now. I'm going to go back down to 4 of these fins. Well, that was a massive improvement on the Cobalt 1 there at the end of the video. Goodness. I cannot believe we had the wrong type of tank. What a huge difference that makes. Because high pressure tanks have such a higher overhead on dry mass. That's crazy. Well, we'll have to test this in the next episode. We're already at 2 hours, so I need to call it somewhere. But as always, thank you guys for watching. Let me know what you think down in the comments below, and I'll see you in the next episode.